Hello, dear passenger. This is your captain speaking, and we are about to take off for another episode of Adventurina. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Adventurina. Hope your week was nice and productive. Hope you currently are on a trip and enjoying this episode, or you're getting ready for a trip, or you just came back. My hopes are always travel related. After the first live episode of the show last week, I got really positive feedback, and apparently, me bitching about things real time is entertaining for a lot of you. It's Sunday, time to relax, time to chill, so hopefully, this episode will kind of contribute to that. I remind you to hit subscribe if you haven't yet, and just make sure you get updates every time an episode is out. So let's get into it. I know I have mentioned a few times before that one of the destinations I have postponed the longest is Chicago. Well, I can finally say no more postponing because back in May I celebrated my birthday, and yes, you are correct, I had a trip planned for it, and yes, you guessed right, it was Chicago. I actually haven't spent my birthday in San Francisco since 2018. Yes, 2018. Just because every year I'm somewhere, which is not a complaint by any means. It's a tradition for me. I have shared before that every year on my birthday, I try to either go somewhere I haven't been before or to do something I've never done before, or both. So the original plan was to go to Miami for my birthday. Unfortunately, things kind of changed, so I had to use my backup plan, which was Chicago. Chicago was a destination I had on my list for over 10 years, maybe. I had always had a reason to postpone this trip. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna make plans for Chicago, but damn, cheap tickets for somewhere else. Let's take advantage of this first. And, somehow this kept happening. I had been postponing this destination for a while, so it was finally time to go, and I loved it. I knew I was gonna love it, but not that much, if I have to be honest. Despite being a big city, Chicago was very clean in general, well organized, and pretty easy to walk around. Tons of stuff to do and see. Absolutely packed itinerary, as you know me. I stayed there for 6 days, and I was able to fit everything I was interested in as a first timer there because, like we've talked before, we don't travel to see everything, we travel to see what we are interested in. And also, it's impossible to see everything, as we also know. So, I flew on a direct flight from San Francisco to O'Hare International Airport in Chicago, which I have been to many times, but only for connection flights. Getting to downtown was pretty easy, cheap, and not too long with the train that goes to the airport. I got on the red eye, so arriving super early in the morning basically gave me a whole another day of exploring. Weather was amazing. Mid May is known to be warm and kind of rainy there, but I was super happy in general. As someone who loves being around any type of water surface, I loved the Riverwalk in Chicago. It's a great way to see a lot of the city and some of the most iconic buildings there. It doesn't matter if you're gonna walk or get on a boat. I, of course, did both, and I think they both are a must. Boat tours are always on my list in places with some kind of lake, river, ocean, and in this case, you learn a lot from the guide who's basically telling you the story of the city. On another day, I took a different boat tour, a sunset cruise, which was purely for the experience and for watching the sunset. And while the regular tour goes on Chicago River and hits different parts of it, the sunset cruise goes on the Lake Michigan. I recommend both. During the first one, you can learn about the city architecture, and during the sunset one, you can just, enjoy the views and relax with zero focusing on what's happening around. I stayed true to myself, and of course, I went to some places high. Higher than what I'm comfortable with. Yes, observation decks. So let me remind you, I'm afraid of heights, but I always force myself to go to places like this because I'm afraid mostly when there is no fence or no glass in front of me. You can put me on the 103rd floor and I'll be fine sitting next to the window enjoying the view, as long as there is a window, or there is either closed window or maybe something taller than my chest level. I don't know. But put me on a ladder 8 feet tall and I can freak out. I just don't like when there's nothing around me to protect me. I know it's weird, but that's how it works with me. So I went to the two most popular observation decks in Chicago, Sky Deck and Chicago 360. Both triggered some major anxiety in me, but in different ways. So Sky Deck is the one with glass observation boxes. Basically, part of the floor and the walls are all made of glass, like glass balconies, I would say. See, this is something that still protects you from falling down, but I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around glass floors. I have multiple experiences with observation decks like this, where I would just spend 20 minutes contemplating if I should go or not. Well, good thing for the one in Chicago was that you only have a minute or a minute and a half. So you first step on that shit. Then they take your photos with the cameras above, so the angle is the best and you have the whole city behind you. And then they mark 90 seconds, and that's all you get, which I don't know how I feel about, because there are a couple of reasons. First, I understand that, if everyone starts taking millions of photos, especially the picky people, it will be very slow and a lot of people will get frustrated. Second, I see the point where you have limited time, which makes you use it in the best way. But isn't 90 seconds too little for an experience like this? Technically, yes. Once you take a look and stand there for a little, snap a few photos, you're basically done. But I feel like it should be at least 5 minutes. Or, okay, maybe 3. But definitely more than a minute and a half. The elevator ride up there is almost the same duration, damn it. On the other hand, having 90 seconds made me really force myself into stepping on that shit. Because, if there was unlimited time, you bet your ass I was gonna spend the night there. Like, trying to decide if I want to step on it or not, good luck. Well, the line was going kind of fast and I didn't really have, time to think much. So my turn came and the girl told me to get ready for the photo she was going to take. I just let her know that I'm super scared and I'm just gonna walk without looking at what's under me so I don't freak out. And that's what I did. I walked all the way to the end of the glass box. I didn't look down once. I just turned around and waited for her signal to pose. Then I took a look at the camera above and, smiled for the photo. By the way, this photo is printed out and it's sitting in my living room. Well, in the part of the studio apartment that I live in, which is designated as living room. But anyway, this photo is on one of my shelves. And until today, every time I look at it, I can tell how scared I am, despite the huge smile I have on. I think everyone can tell if they know me. So after she took the photo, she set up the clock to 90 seconds because, yes, they are super strict. They count every second. And I had some time for myself to enjoy the glass box. Well, at first, of course, I needed to have, one of my legs on the actual floor in case something collapses. I don't care. It's just a mindfuck when you feel something under your feet, but you don't see it. It's creepy. So I was, holding the dear wall with one of my hands, and with the other one, I took some photos and finally dared to look down and see what I was standing on, which was basically glass, and the whole city was under me. And good thing I only had 90 seconds, because as I said, I forced myself to step there and experience the heights. I knew it was limited time, so I didn't want to lose it. I also lay down with part of my body on the glass and the other part on the real floor, again, just in case, if this shit breaks and, I wanted to be safe. But the other observation deck, Chicago 360, was worse. And when I say worse, I don't mean a bad experience or something that is not worth it. Worse for me. Worse for me and my mental health. Because 360 Chicago is known for the experience called the tilt. How do I describe this thing? How do I describe the tilt? Let me see. Horror? Like pure horror maybe? I don't know. So the infamous tilt is a part of the observation deck where the glass wall has handlers. I think it fits 8 people or 10 maybe, not sure. So you grab the handlers on the glass and you wait for this bitch to start moving. The glass tilts over the goddamn city while you're leaning forward on the handlers. And it sounds horrible. Well, for me, it kind of was, in fact. But in reality, you're just watching the city through the glass. It's the position of your body that makes it too intense. And of course, your own mind not realizing the glass is protecting you. The mind fuck is your body feeling like you have nothing in between and you're holding the handlers for your dear life. I was very anxious before this experience, of course, because I knew I was gonna be super uncomfortable and stressed, although, I have no one to blame. I'm the one who decides to do this to herself. So I got on the line, and just like every time I feel stressed before a certain experience, I just watched. I watched the people who are coming and leaving. I was watching how they would react. I was watching if they enjoyed it. I kind of wanted a confirmation that this was bearable. It was finally my turn and I entered the special area, but I immediately felt like I needed more time. So I told one of the people from the staff, look, I'm kind of freaking out here. So is it okay if I just stay and wait for a few people to go first? Like, I just need some time to, get a little bit of courage. She was cool. She's like, sure, no problem. I hung out with her and a guy who was taking people's photos. I wasn't in a rush at all. At some point, I was like, okay, I can keep postponing this more and more. Because I didn't have a time limit like the other observation decks. So I wasn't rushed. I wasn't forced to experience it. And that made me procrastinate. When I was inside, I was looking directly at the people who were experiencing the tilt at the moment, and I don't know if that did me a favor or not. I feel like a few people definitely gave me a boost of confidence by, making it look like it was super chilled. I was still standing there waiting for the moment to decide I can do it, and, I was getting closer to the glass. Then the next group of people entered the area and 2 women came closer to me. So they started talking and they asked me if they were cutting me off the line. I was like, no, don't worry about me. I've been here for some time, just waiting to overcome my fear and do it. And they were like, oh, let's do it together. Come on. We will be on both your sides. And this is why I love traveling solo so much. Like, every single time I travel by myself, I not only get to meet and talk to a lot of interesting people, locals and tourists both, but I also get to experience things that make me feel comfortable and thankful for having someone around, someone I don't even know, someone I probably won't even meet again in my life ever. So this is what happened. Seeing how sweet these women were, I immediately felt comforted and less stressed. So we were in this together now. One of them claimed to be scared too, but apparently not even close to my scared, because she turned out to be comforting me at the end. Next thing I remember, I just said fuck it, and I went and grabbed the handlers between them. They were encouraging me, they were cheering me up. They even grabbed my hands on the handlers so I felt their support. And it was awesome, honestly. I really felt like I wasn't scared anymore, or at least not that much. And then this thing started moving forward, tilting. Damn it. And as usual, when I'm facing some kind of heights that I don't feel comfortable with, curses come through my mouth with no filter. So hold your kids. Give them earplugs, shut their ears, because I can't help it. Like, I won't be appropriate, and I won't even think of who's around me, and if I'm cursing in front of children, I just won't. I won't think about it. There's no thinking in my head at moments like this, like only curses. They come naturally, they leave my mouth naturally, it is what it is. The best I can do is probably to switch and curse in my language, because no one will understand, but not every time I have the capacity to even remind myself of doing that, Anyway, once my cursing started, my heart started racing as well, and I'm not lying when I'm telling you I was holding on to these handlers like this was the last thing I was doing, because it literally felt like it was the last thing I was gonna do. The wall doesn't tilt in a crazy wild way, but even the slightest tilt makes you hang above the city and feel surreal, especially for wusses like me. I don't know. The whole experience is, I believe, about 2 minutes, three the most. I don't know. It felt like it was so long for me. Honestly, too long for me. After the first 20 seconds, I was ready to leave. They started moving back and forth, so you just experienced the horror of the initial leaning a few times, I guess. So yeah, with legs shaking and my heart about to burst out of my body, I said a gigantic thank you to the two lovely women who held my hands in this emotional moment. And I went back to the main part of the observation deck so I could watch the sunset. And a few minutes later, I heard people screaming from the tilt area, and I felt proud of myself that despite all the cursing and all the time that it took me, at least I didn't scream. Who's the macho now, huh? Anyway, another really cool experience that required my hand to be held was something that wasn't even related to heights, well, at least not directly, but your captain needed some support for. So in Chicago, there is this immersive experience called Fly Over Chicago. In general, I love things like that, things that take you out of reality with no 3D or 4D or whatever glasses you would usually need. And Fly Over Chicago is basically the same. It's a motion seat placed in front of a gigantic wraparound screen, and the seat moves forward, so you are in the middle of the action. And you'll be flying over the city, under bridges, and around Chicago's most epic landmarks. So you're basically just sitting in your seat, and the screen, the motion, and the effects do the job for you. Not in my mind though, because I swear to you guys, I was about to shit my pants when they dropped us down from the tallest building. I mean, you cannot see the quotes that I'm making with my hands. I was waiting for my body to hit the ground. That's how real it was. And that was the moment I grabbed the hand of the woman sitting next to me, and she screamed back, "I know, it's so real." I feel like sometimes people think I'm a moron who thinks that this is real. But no, guys, I may be a moron, but not that kind of a moron, I understand this is an immersive experience, but it still scares the shit out of me because it feels so real. And honestly, that's a freaking compliment for the people whose idea that was, and the people who executed it, because my reaction means you did a good goddamn job. Like, wasn't that what you're aiming for? Like someone saying, "Damn, that was so real." Well, maybe not someone who's screaming bloody murder while they're only staying on seats above 6 feet away from the floor in reality. Yes, in reality, but at this moment, there's no reality for me. I'm in Chicago sky, I'm cruising around, I'm falling down off buildings. It was awesome. For the 10 minutes, I was constantly impressed and entertained and on alert and waiting for something to happen, so I highly recommend it. As I mentioned, the weather was super nice, hot, sunny, clear skies for most of the time. The second day, it rained for a little bit, but it was still warm after. It didn't mess up my plan, thank God. I think you already know how I react in those situations. The last day, it even started pouring. Well, not in the middle of nowhere, it was expected, it was in the forecast, but I was crossing and I was in the middle of a big boulevard when I got stuck in between lights on the concrete island because, they changed and I didn't want to get ran over by a car, so I stayed there and waited for the next green light for pedestrians when it started pouring. I had nowhere to go because cars were flying left and right, so I had to stay and get soaked until the goddamn light changed and I was able to cross. So, good thing that was right before I had to leave for the airport on my last day. So, yeah, it didn't affect anything. For the first couple of nights in Chicago, I stayed with friends, but after that I had a few nights booked in a hostel downtown. Perfect location, super close to public transport, and I was very impressed how clean everything was. Our room was 4 bunk beds, so 8 girls, and the room itself was huge. Like, I could throw frisbee to the other girls or play badminton, I don't know, but it was super big. Bathroom just for us inside the room, plus double sink outside of the bathroom. It was just perfect. Breakfast was good too, and the dining room had a view to the street, and the train was going just outside of the window. I also met great people. One of them turned out to live in Massachusetts, really close to Cape Cod, where I used to spend my J1 summers at in the US, where I of course, still have close friends who I visit. And the other girl I met, she was Brazilian. She was great to talk to as well. I even got to visit a few beaches. For those of you who don't know, Chicago is situated on the Michigan Lake, so there's plenty of water around. I kind of regret not bringing a swimsuit. I just had no idea that the water was going to be so warm. Living in San Francisco, where the water is always colder than the ice cubes in your freezer, I did not even assume a lake like Michigan Lake could be so warm after months of being frozen due to the brutal winter they have over there. I guess the idea I had for Chicago being freezing during the winter made me think that the lake water has a similar temperature to our bay here. I don't know. But it was definitely warmer, and next time I will know. Quick comment on the transportation. I used public transportation everywhere. I think I only took Uber or Lyft once, if I'm not mistaken. Public transportation takes you everywhere. It's fast, it's cheap, you see a ton while you're on it. I even went to see Home Alone Original House, which is located outside of Chicago. As someone who grew up watching Kevin McAllister every freaking Christmas, sometimes more than once, I really enjoyed just walking around the street and, standing in front of this iconic home, remembering different scenes from the movie. I also did many other things. I went to the zoo, which was free. I checked out the fountain from the popular sitcom Married with Children, where you can also spot a light show every night, by the way. Of course, I tried the world famous deep dish pizza, which was so delicious that, even after bringing the leftovers back to the hostel and after heating them up on the next day, it was still bomb. By the way, it tasted exactly like the pizza my dad makes in Bulgaria, I swear to God. When I tried it, I was like, damn, I didn't know my dad was making Chicago deep dish pizza his whole life. Or maybe Chicago was making my dad's pizza and they didn't know. You decide. I don't know. I also tried the Chicago style hot dog, specifically recommended by my friends. I think I forgot to mention that on the actual day of my birthday, we went to the Bulgarian restaurant, which I was looking forward to. It was the first evening and it was, a great way to finish a longest day of traveling and walking around. I also met some Bulgarians, not just in the restaurant, but on one of the boat tours. I went to the planetarium. I walked on the famous Magnificent Mile, which is similar to Fifth Avenue in New York, a street with, tons of stores, including high-end brands. I checked out a few parks, saw the iconic Bean, took a ride on the Centennial Wheel at Navy Pier. I also visited Car Factory and the Ice Cream Museum. Both fun experiences and really great for snapping memorable photos, I would say. I was basically doing 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 miles walking every day, and I can say my first Chicago trip was incredible. And from start to finish, I really didn't have anything to complain for. Every day was packed with tons of things to do, and again, these were just the essentials for first timers and specifically what I was interested in. I didn't even go to a jazz club or a theater play or Cubs game, all of these things being iconic for Chicago, but since I liked it so much, I knew I was gonna go back and I already know what I'm doing next time. I have mentioned before that I don't like going back to places usually. Once I go somewhere, I would rather see everything I'm interested in with one trip, so then I can spend money on something new next time, a new destination. But Chicago is so massive and there's so many more things to do that I really want to come back, and I will, make an exception for it. I just love every place that has water, rivers, lakes, ocean. Sign me up. On top of that, one of my best friends here in San Francisco just moved to Chicago, so now I have one more reason to go back. Besos, Paulis, if you're listening. Of course, I got my souvenirs, tons of photos, tons of memories, and now I'm preparing a post about how to spend 6 days in Chicago, so stay tuned if this beautiful city is on your bucket list. If it's not, it should be. So my closest friends know that I'm not a TV person. I almost don't watch any TV at all. I despise news. I have no idea what is going on with the world sometimes, but that's what I prefer. I don't like the negativity and waste of time that comes with watching TV, so I kind of prefer to stay in my little bubble and be uninformed about everything around. And you always end up knowing anyway because there are so many other sources or people will tell you However, occasionally I play something, different than my favorite show Friends, just as a background, just so something can talk to me. And a few weeks ago, I found myself not watching, but binge listening this show. What's it called? Either Love from First Sight or Married from First Sight or Love is Blind. One of the three. I don't know. They sound and look similar to me, but one of those. Anyway, it started as a trailer. I needed something to play without paying attention to it. And next thing I know, I'm listening to some deep conversations and arguments and stuff like that. Why the hell is she telling us this, you're asking? Well, because the people in the episode were talking about traveling, of course. The only way for me to hear something and to start paying attention is to be about traveling. So this couple was kind of arguing because the woman wanted to travel and see many places, and the husband, or the future husband, whatever he was convincing her to save money and buy a house or something like that. So this girl was, explaining to her future husband that she wants to travel, she wants to see the world, she has countries like Japan and Switzerland on her bucket list, and she was basically giving him a heads up that she is going to travel because she's been doing this by herself anyway. She was just, hoping she could do it with her partner. So where should I start from? First, thank you, future husband, to this girl for letting her know that you're not the type of person she wants to marry. Thanks for letting her know she's about to make a mistake. Second, there is something that really pisses me off about people who feel the need to explain why you should save money. I mean, do whatever you want, good for you, happy for you, but don't convince me that I have to do the same. I'm not convincing you to travel more, I'm encouraging you, so don't force the things you're doing. It reminds me of a conversation I had with someone who was claiming to have a really successful business. We weren't close, just happened to know each other, and one time out of nowhere, this guy asked me, "Why do you travel so much?" And you guys know I rarely shut the hell up. Like, this podcast is literally a proof of that, but in this moment, I really was speechless in a way. I really didn't know what to say. Like, what the hell do I say to that? Like, how do I answer? And I remember, taking a few seconds, and after I saw I wasn't going to be able to give a proper answer, I just said, well, why don't you travel more? And that was the only reasonable thing that came to my mind. And he was like, oh, I'm working on my business right now. I'm establishing it in the market. I'm saving all my money. And I'm planning to be a millionaire in 15 years. So then I'm going to travel. I'm like, oh, buddy. This answer made me pause for even longer. Excuse me? I mean, admirations for the confidence, for the dedication, all of it. But bro, who guarantees you even tomorrow? Like, who promised you that you first make it to after 15 years? And then who promised you that you will be a millionaire? Like, what exactly is the purpose of being a millionaire if you miss the best years of your life just to achieve it? He started convincing me and explaining why everyone should focus on careers and making money and start traveling after they achieved everything and are financially stable. I was just like, my friend, pretty much exaggerated and insincere, since I can't be friends with someone like this. I was like, look, you do whatever you want and whatever you know. Like, hope you succeed. But I'm not waiting a decade and a half to start exploring the world. Because even tomorrow is not guaranteed. I'm sorry. As dramatic as it sounds, it's true. Like, especially after the pandemic, you would think people appreciate things and time more. Apparently not everyone. I understand the ambition, the motivation. I understand the goals. I have those things myself. I have them too. All of them. But there is something that really bothers me when all of those three are focused only on money. And I don't know, I keep asking myself, do these people who dream of being millionaires really feel good when they achieve it? If they achieve it. Like, is it worth it to sacrifice years of your life limiting yourself on experiences and having fun just to achieve some number, like number that most likely will give you more responsibilities and more work equals less time. I think I'm convinced at this point that why do you travel so much may have been the dumbest question I've ever been asked, just because I don't believe there's a person who doesn't see how traveling enriches you and benefits you. Or maybe I don't want to believe there are people like this. I don't know. And I just decided to share. I'm not saying I know how to live life. I'm only saying just because you have a specific goal doesn't mean we all have to follow it. Like, there will be too many millionaires out there if we do. I would rather stay on the other side, not piling up cash, but I don't know, moments and experiences. Because, as I said, I'm not convincing people to travel, I'm just encouraging them. So if you can please not convince me to do things your way, it would be great. As you can tell from that story, I did not maintain a good friendship or relationship after that, but this conversation still pops up in my mind from time to time. And I always remind myself, like, you never know what life holds for you. Today is one thing, tomorrow can be 180 degrees opposite. So today is a gift, right? And that's what they call it, present. Damn, that was very, very powerful. I guess the moral of the story is that this conversation is stuck in my mind, and every time I consider something, I play it in my head and I know I would rather regret things I did than things I didn't do. I don't know. I read somewhere that a person has two lives, and the second life starts when you realize you only have one. That's pretty accurate, I think. Like, mortality is a really refreshing reminder sometimes. But okay, enough. It's getting too philosophical. People would be like, why did we tune in this? So anyway, in general, I wanted to say that I would consider anyone who's trying to limit my experiences, especially travel experiences, I would consider that a red flag. Which, by the way, is a little confusing to me because how do you know you're a travel freak? I hear people talking about red flags and I think of Denmark, Canada, Japan instead of, I don't know, suspicious human behavior. Like, once I realized people use the term red flag for what to watch out for, not for geography, I started thinking about what a red flag is for me. And I can say that it is just the thing I talked about. Just someone limiting you from experiences or trying to force on you their way of thinking. But no, we don't do that here. We don't tolerate any negativity, especially when it comes to traveling. If you dare to ask us why we travel so much, please don't expect an answer, just block us. On the other hand, if you need a little encouragement, if you need someone to tell you what you want to hear, I'll be here patiently waiting to help someone making a travel decision, because my advice is always go. Go, see, experience. You know, time flies and we won't always have the opportunity to do certain things, or at least not in the same way. When there's a chance for a new experience, I would say embrace it, and remember, you would regret the things you haven't done, not the things you've done. And with that said, I want to say thank you guys again for listening. Hope this week's Adventurina dose was enough. If not, I will see you next Sunday. And until then, dream, plan, conquer, and bon voyage.